I just got back from picking up our milk that we get every week, and I thought this would be a great moment to show you what we actually do with our, oops, it's tipping over in here, with our raw milk in a week. What I love about getting milk from a farm versus just from the grocery store is that there's a lot of seasonal variation. The cows just had calves, and I know from comparing this bottle of milk with previous bottles of milk that, first of all, there's a big layer of fat cream on top, which has something to do with spring and the grass being really rich right now. And in Northern California over the summer and into the fall, it's just basically all dry. But also it has a different color because it has the colostrum in it, which comes in when the cows have calves. This one isn't quite full. Usually we get 2 full half gallons because there was a health concern with one of the cows and the vet wasn't quite sure whether to say that it would be good to include this particular cow's milk. So that's why everybody who got milk got a little bit less. The first thing I'll do is I will put this in the refrigerator, and then I'm going to show you what fun things we do with our milk as we are going through a week. I just absolutely love knowing where our milk comes from. These are super happy cows, and I'm so happy for them. And as always, if you're hearing a lot of like funny noises going on, that's our dog trying to settle in the kitchen while I'm recording this video. The first thing I like to do is take the cream off of the milk, and I just scoop it out. There's always so much cream. If you're used to regular store-bought milk, it usually has about 3.5% of fat. And if you get raw milk, it varies. I think it's at least 3.8 depending on the cows and where they graze and what kind of other food they might get. And we always try to find this balance between letting the cream rise to the top and not waiting too long. And then I add the Kelowna Supernatural buttermilk, which is my favorite buttermilk in the whole world. I add that to culture the cream, and in the description box of this video I have a coupon for you where you can get a coupon for some discount of their dairy products, and you can also find out where you can get the Kelowna Supernatural products. And then I set that in the windowsill. Here it is after at least 24 hours. It's nicely set, and it is sour cream, so either I can just use it as it is or make butter with it. So I'm just going to put it in the refrigerator. Here I have 2 jars with soured cream that is ready to be made into butter. And this one's really stiff too. However, the best temperature for butter is at about 60 or so degrees. So I always like to take the jars out from the refrigerator and then leave them on the counter for just about an hour before I make the butter. And when I'm ready, I simply add the sour cream, the cultured cream, to my Vitamix blender. If you don't have a Vitamix blender, you can use a food processor or a KitchenAid stand mixer or just a hand blender. There's various ways you can do this. I find that the Vitamix is just super fast and super easy. And I like to also scrape out every bit of goodness because I sometimes think that these cows spend so much of their energy to produce this fat-rich milk that we're getting the cream from, and I get a kick out of being frugal, but I also don't want to waste anything that did take a cow a lot of energy to produce. So that's where I like to use a silicone spatula to get everything out. Adding the lid, and I turn that to fairly low. You kind of need to figure out the setting of your particular machine. You don't want to blend it too high. And actually, after just not even 5 minutes, you can see how the fat has separated from, this is the buttermilk, the real buttermilk. And I like to, oops, I have a little bit of piece in my strainer. I like to strain the buttermilk out. This is fantastic buttermilk. It's real cultured buttermilk. It has these tiny little flecks of butter in it, and it's so thick and heavy and perfect. I absolutely love it. So we're gonna strain out as much as we can, because that will make the butter last longer. And you can press a little bit, and then I have another bowl in which I collect the butter, and there's more buttermilk. It sits in all these little nooks and crannies between the butter. So I continue to strain it to get all the buttermilk out. And I can use the buttermilk to make a new batch of soured cream, cultured cream. I can drink it from the glass if you are European like I am and are used to that. Or you can add it to your pancakes and your waffles and in all your baked goods. Buttermilk really elevates the flavor of anything that you add it to. You can even marinate your meats in it. So many uses for buttermilk. And again, if you're familiar with what Germans like to eat, they like to make a soft cheese called quark, and you can also make that from buttermilk, for which I have an entire recipe video. So now I have mostly butter in there. I like to wash the butter, and for that I'm using filtered water, because I don't want to use the chlorinated tap water that we have to kill any of the cultures, the life active cultures that I have in my butter. So the butter washing is another really important piece of this, and I just move it around with a spatula. You'll see that the water here is pretty whitish, which means that there is still a lot in there, but at this point I'll just drain it into the sink. And I'll give it another washing. As I said, your butter will last longer the more you wash it. Just spreading it around with the spatula. And here you can see if your butter is pretty solid, it's gonna have been taking you longer to make the butter, and if it's pretty soft, if you started with pretty warm sour cream, they're pretty mushy, and this might be a little harder to do. And this final step, I'm dumping all the butter into a bowl that I just keep in my sink. And you have animals feeding and eating in the background. All that's going on in our urban homestead kitchen. Again, I like to scrape out as much of the butter as I can, because it's so good, it's so rich, and it's so full of flavor. If you've never had cultured butter, oh my goodness, you are in for a treat. I use my butter paddles, and all I do is I squeeze the butter. Turn and squeeze and turn and squeeze, and the idea here is that I want to squeeze out as much of the water slash whatever remaining buttermilk I might have in there. And I can already dump this, and I continue squeezing out everything that's in there. And the more you do that, again, the longer your butter will last. It won't spoil as fast. It will also, because of the higher fat content, it will be softer and taste better. I'll just keep on doing this Get a little bit of a singing bowl effect here. And you can do this for a good 5 minutes until you're satisfied. Sometimes you need to, you know, try out your recipe a little bit. And here's my butter in a glass jar. Now for the kefir, I have my existing jar of kefir that I had fermented in a warm spot closer by the heater in our dining room. And I just take the kefir grains out. And sometimes there's a little bit of kefir in there, and then I check for any remaining grains in my finished kefir and stir it all up because it tends to be a little lumpy and separated. Here I'm adding milk to my kefir grains. Put my beeswax wrap on top, and it goes back into its warm spot. This kefir hasn't quite set yet. It always depends a little bit on the temperature. In the summer, my kefir will ferment a lot faster than in the winter. And if you haven't really done kefir before, because it can get really prolific and all of a sudden you don't know what to do with all this kefir, check out my video right here on how you can slow down your kefir and how you can actually adjust it so that you get the perfect amount for your home. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.